Well, welcome, Amy. It's nice to spend some time with you this morning.
Oh, thanks for having me, Christine.
You're welcome. For those that are listening to us today, I'm here with AmyK Hutchins, and she has been speaking for over 30 years. And the thing that she's best at is talking about how do we have difficult conversations and get through them. So welcome. We're excited to have a conversation with you today.
Oh, that's great. I am too. Not that any of us have had a difficult conversation in the last 12 months, but maybe we can be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Christine Pouliot, and I run a local CEO peer advisory group here in the Minneapolis area through Vistage. And me and my group, we're having lots of interesting conversations lately. And so I'm looking forward to bringing a few of those questions to you and getting your ideas about what will be helpful for our local business owners and CEOs here.
Terrific. I think that one of the things that we can all relate to, whether we're an entrepreneur, we're a corporate executive, is that the tough conversation that we know that we need to have, we often avoid. Hello, we'll do that. We'll procrastinate. And so much of it is because either we're scared to start it, we don't know how to start it, we're afraid of the unintended consequences. What if it's worse? And yet the cost of not having it, Christine, is huge. So financially, we've got the research that says that avoiding a tough conversation can be anywhere from $7,500 to $10,000 of just quantifiable costs. And that's on average. So some are more. And then the way that I look at it too is, but then what's the emotional cost? The stress, the anxiety, the energy drain, all that too. So I'm a big believer in sooner than later, but then how do we do it? So I'd love to dive into that with you.
Yeah, happy to do that. I mean, I'm thinking some of the conversations that we've had, I know at least a couple of the members in our group have been talking about difficult employees.
Oh, yeah.
This whole idea, right person in the right seat is difficult when they've been a long-term employee and you realize they're really not in the right seat.
It is hard. And I think that one of the things that I encourage leaders to do is to think about the overarching framework, to think about that empathic response of, at first, I need to connect with this person. And I need to, and I say this professionally and appropriately, you need to do an ego stroke and start with strengths and let them know they have been a significant contributor or they've done all of these things. But in order for them to continue their legacy, in order for them to stay in a significantly meaningful role and to really and truly allow their strength to have an even more positive impact, we're going to have to shift some things around. And the important thing to remember this too, especially as you're bringing up this example, is we're told a lot that people fear change. And we've all got that buzzword, that mantra of, oh, people fear change. Actually not true. We don't fear change. So if I said to you, hey, I want to give you $1 million tomorrow, you'd be like, bring on that change. I love it. What we fear is whether we're going to be successful in the new way. We fear anything that threatens our identity. So your example of, hey, somebody's been in this role for 20 something years, and now I need them to actually start to perform better, and I need to switch their role. Think about it from their perspective. They're going to want to be assured that they're going to be successful, and you're threatening their identity and their title. And so you have to deal with all of that first before you're just like, hey, this is a great opportunity for you, because it's not sincere yet.
Right. Well, and I like your conversation about that fearing change. The thing that I've heard that I think ties well into that is what they really fear is loss.
Yes.
And that might be loss of control. That might be loss of status.
Yeah, it goes right back to that identity
of expertise.
Threat. Yep,
perhaps.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that one of the things that we tend to do, or I've witnessed, I'll just speak anecdotally from my experience, is I've seen a lot of leaders go in, and I've been speaking for Vistage for 20 some years and speaking for 30. And I've witnessed a lot. So anecdotally, from my perspective, I've seen hundreds of leaders who will be like, okay, I'm going to have this tough conversation. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to lay them right between the eyes and I'm going to get out. And sometimes that's appropriate, but on these initial conversations, you want to let people feel seen, heard, and understood first. And so I lived in China for years, and one of the concepts that they have as a part of their vernacular is soft front, hard back. And what that really means is that I'm going to come in to connect with you first, and then I'm going to be firm. Then I'm going to have boundaries. I'm going to have a strong spine. But if I come in all blustery and then you push back and then I'm soft, it's like you lose respect and you lose that ability to actually
Sure.
have connection and chemistry.
Yeah. So all of that idea sounds really great, Amy, when you're talking about somebody that just needs to perform differently or someone who needs to take a different role in the company. What if the message really is you don't belong here anymore
It's
and
not
we
a
need
fit.
to make a change?
And I think transparency is really appropriate. So if I were to role play with you and you were talking to me, and let's say I'm the one that's not a fit, it would be that, hey, AmyK, how might we create an ideal scenario where you shine? What does that really look like? And when we talk about that ideal scenario, what we're going to come to realize pretty quickly is it's not happening in the current situation. It's not happening. There was a Vistage member years ago, and he said, God, there's this woman, and I've talked to her like 3 or 4 times, and she's just not getting it. She's just not a fit in our culture. And I said, well, what do you want? He's like, I want her to shine. And I was like, well, take that want and realize that it doesn't have to be in your company. Help her shine where she's meant to shine on somebody else's boat. And so I said that it's not about kicking her out and being upset. It's about saying, this isn't a fit. Let's go let you shine your bright light someplace where you're going to make a stronger impact. And you could just see the wheels turning of like, oh my God, I never thought about it. I was like, yeah, your legacy is not just to retain your own employees. Your legacy is to retain the right employees in the right seats, and then let other people go out into the world and play in the sandbox that they're meant to play in.
Yeah. What I love about that, Amy, is it reminds me in my corporate career, my last work was actually outsourcing my team and all of their work. And so lots of hard conversations around what does that mean for me? Because it didn't mean here in this seat. And the conversations that we consistently had was around what's possible now. Where can you shine? Where can you bring your gifts? What are the places you want to play? What's the opportunity in front of you with all of this?
And I'm a huge fan of magical phrases, Christine. And I think that these really critical conversations, a great way to frame them kind of in this overarching question is the how might we? So whether it's how might we make you a more integrated, successful team player? How might we increase our sales by 12%? How might we allow you to go shine your light in the world and a better fit? But when you say how might we, you're opening up to a world of possibility. You don't have to figure it out in that conversation. It can be exploratory. But the minute that I say we, what I'm really communicating to you is that your voice matters. And we're going to co-create this together. So I'm a big believer that people fire themselves, people promote themselves. We do it together. We're co-creating. So if somebody's really upset, like, I can't believe that you're doing this to me, just realize that everybody is co-creating together.
Yeah, I like the we language there too, because it not just says I want to hear you, but it also says I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
I want for you.
It's so true. And I think that it kind of comes back to, and I don't know, maybe Christine, you've heard this phrases too, but I've seen this as well. People are like, oh, it's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. It's all going to be fine. And the reality is it may not be fine. And we don't know if it's going to be fine.
Right.
So one of the things that I encourage leaders to do too, is to be more definitive in we can face this. You can face this. And when appropriate, you can also add, and I'm here to face it with you. So I love that with language as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit, Amy, because some of the other things we've been talking about is just managing through this current economic environment from a couple of different ways. Conversations I need to have with my banking partners, conversations I need to have with my customers about their banking relationships with all of the stuff that's going around there. Treading on that territory right now where it's uncomfortable. It is one of them.
Well, I think
what thoughts do you have there?
Yeah, I think it goes back to one thing we've already said is the how might we, how might we shore up and secure financial stability. But then I would also encourage every leader, whether you're meeting with a banking partner or an equity investor, I think it's the classic Socratic question Socrates posed: what am I missing? And really forcing that expert who you've hired to be that brilliant sage, on the side of your stage, so to speak, and say, look, I don't want to be blindsided by this. I want to know that we can learn from this. I'm asking you the tough questions. What am I missing? What do we need to do differently? What are some of the perspectives that we could look at that we're not currently looking at? What are some of our other options? It was interesting. I was at a banking conference just last week. And again, some of these really tough conversations are to admit, where are we exposed? You know, what do we want to learn while we're not in the hot seat, like another one of these financial failures or these banks, to say, how do we learn from that and get ready or more prepared to play differently, more thoughtfully, more securely? And so again, I just come back to that. Be vulnerable as a leader and hire the experts, use the consultants that are around you, use those banking relationships, and just say, and you can even say, what are we missing? And then go shore up.
Yeah. Thank you. Switching gears again, another big piece, and I know you do a bunch of work around this, is talking about sales.
Yes.
So everyone is looking at, where are we personally? So, one business might be still having, strong profitability, but the sales are down. Another place is, I've not really been trained in sales. And so what are some of the key conversations that I should be having, or how should I be approaching those conversations so I can have better success?
Well, I think it's interesting. So I take a little bit of a controversial perspective, but not super controversial, but enough to say, I think we're all in sales, every single one of us. So whether you're a leader selling your ideas, a mission, a vision, whether you're literally in sales and you're out there, hawking something, but I think that we're all in sales. And this is the wild thing. Nobody is a little kid. We've all heard this. Nobody says, oh, I want to grow up to be in sales. But we're constantly in sales. And the way that I look at it is, start changing the vocabulary. The first conversation that I do with sales leaders is, what's the conversation that you're having inside your head about the sales and marketing team that you lead? Because if it's constantly a numbers conversation, you're not going to grow as far as fast as you want to. If you start to look at, who are we serving? What problems are we solving? What costs are we mitigating? What pain points are we reducing? How are we helping our fellow man or woman? And I come from a very strong sales background, where I changed the vocabulary in a company from sales, close, to serve. These are souls, that we're actually trying to solve their problems. And what was fascinating is, between a common vocabulary that was more about service, more about connecting than pitching, with a focus not on the numbers, but on the problems that we allowed our teams to solve. And then when I kept saying, okay, in order to reach that goal, who must you become? It's one of my favorite questions to ask both the sales leader and somebody on the sales team. Who do you have to become in order to lead into that number? So whether your goal is 1 million, 5 million, 500 million, 1 billion, who do you have to become? And that's a fantastic conversation to have with your sales team, both individually and collectively. Who do we have to become to evolve into this sales goal that we have? So the fun fact when I was in corporate is that we grew 44% in 18 months. And then we do an iconic inner circle for sales leaders, and our women are always exceeding their quotas. We had one woman who actually grew from 8 million to 22 million during the pandemic. And it's because you have to constantly be having that conversation. Who am I up to being through this process?
Yeah. Amy, any key ideas about how to approach sales conversations for somebody who maybe hasn't done a lot of that?
Okay. So we all know the adage in real estate, it's location, location, location. In sales, it's questions, questions, questions. And it really is preparing yourself to ask those bigger, better, bolder questions that allow the brain of the prospect that you're talking to, that person that you're serving, to come up with their own brilliant idea that you are their solution. And so a lot of it is implication questions. One of my magical phrases is, what happens when? So for instance, let's just say that I'm selling you storage solution. And I say to you, Christine, well, what happens when you run out? What happens when the physical space is gone or your rate increases? Well, then let's talk enterprise content management. Let's get some of the storage and the data into the cloud. But I'm asking what happens when, and I'm allowing you to answer it so that you paint your own negative picture of the scene that you want to avoid versus me being negative Nelly over here. So it's no different than if you said to a little kid, like, what happens when you forget your permission slip? Or what happens when you forget your lunch? And they're like, oh, you're like, okay, well, then you better remember it. Like, you better take it. And you're doing the same thing at an adult level.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
I love
Any
this
other?
stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So Amy, I know that you have been a Vistage member in the past for over 8 years. I would love to hear about what your experience was like with Vistage and what you got out of it.
Vistage is amazing. And I joke some days I bleed teal, not only because I was a speaker for so long and still am for the summits, but I was a member. And I say this 100% authentically because I'm a speaker. The best part about the day for me was the executive session, where we all come together, somebody's in the hot seat, somebody's got a huge opportunity or a really difficult challenge, and you've got 12 to 15 people sitting around the table who are all showing up to help you, to either help you close that opportunity, successfully navigate that challenge. And what I loved so much about it, and where I got the most value, was everybody's sharing their perspective. Everybody's sharing their expertise. So they're challenging your thinking, they're challenging you in the way that you're approaching it, they're giving you more options, they're showing you that there's a lot of ways that you could successfully solve it. That to me was worth its weight in gold.
That's just great to hear, Amy. I'm always thrilled to hear the stories. Last week I was at a manufacturing excellence award and ended up, bumping into two previously presidents of family-owned companies, and both of them were talking about, their fantastic experience with Vistage and how impactful it was for them in their own business.
Yeah,
So,
it's legit. It's legit.
Yeah.
It really is.
So AmyK, can you tell me, what do you think is the ideal group size for a Vistage CEO peer group?
Well, I think that, it's context dependent, but I'll tell you that whether you've got 4, 5, 6 people in an emerging group, or you've got 15 to 17 in that robust seasoned group, there's values on both ends of the spectrum. So I have always thought, especially when I do masterminds as well, even though we're only like for a retreat, right? Ours are small, but
Sure.
in Vistage for a full year, for longer, if you're going to stay for years, as I did, being a part of the founding group is you set the norm, you set the tone and the culture, you get to invite the various areas of expertise, you get a lot of spotlight on you. And so when you're in that small, intimate group, there's a lot of value both for you personally and in shaping the future. When you're a part of a bigger group, you might step in as the newbie and you've already got a whole room full of really bright, brilliant brains in a myriad of industries that are ready to play full out. And so I think that one of the things that I've always said to people are like, oh, I want to join, but the group's just getting started. And I'm like, perfect timing. Get in there, shape it, co-create the future, co-create the group that you want. And then I had somebody the other day who called because they're like, I'm thinking about joining Vistage, but the group is huge. They're like, the group is 15. And I'm like, perfect, because you're going to have all these brilliant brains already around the table and you're going to benefit from the get-go. And so the way that I look at it is either way, you're going to get a huge ROI, both return on investment and ripple of impact in your life, your relationships, and your career and your business. It's choosing the mindset, whether it's 15, 17, or it's 5, it's your mindset that's going to determine how much you get out of it.
Thank you so much, AmyK. It has been such a pleasure to meet with you this morning and pick your brain about some of the challenging topics that we're talking about. I so appreciate you and your news and messages to our group.
Oh, thanks for having me, Christine. Really and truly, it was a total pleasure.
Thank you so much.